And she said to me, do you want to be the person at the end of the bed directing the plan of care, or do you want to be the person at the bedside with the patient?
Oh, that's
And I
good.
knew,
That's good.
yeah. And at one point, I just kind of was listening to a lecture at a student nurse conference about how nursing chooses you. And I just looked around the room at this conference and I realized that everyone was just like me. And that's how I knew that nursing chose me.
Hello, and welcome to the Art of Emergency Nursing podcast. This is where we share stories for inspiration, entertainment, and encouragement, because we all know emergency nurses have the best stories. Now here's your host, Kevin McFarland.
Hey everyone, this is Kevin McFarland, and in this episode of Art of Emergency Nursing, I'm going to be talking to Kelsea Bice. Kelsea Bice is an ER nurse, a clinical coordinator, and is an emerging professional in the ENA. Not only is she the president of her local chapter, but she's also the chairperson of the National ENA Emerging Professional Advisory Council. In this episode, we're going to discuss what an emerging professional is and how her family ties have shaped her choice to be a nurse and her nursing practice in general. You're going to love this episode. Enjoy this episode with my friend, Kelsea Bice.
All right, let's do this. So I'm in the recliner, beer in hand, ready to talk about nursing with my BFF, Kevin.
That's funny. Oh my God, this is going to be so much fun.
So my name is Kelsea. I'm an ER nurse in Houston, Texas. I work at a large corporate hospital here in Houston, and I'm a clinical coordinator, and been a nurse about 5 years. I'll make my 5-year mark next month. And then I'll no longer be an emerging professional, which is so sad. And I've been ER the whole time. I've worked at 2 different hospitals. One was a cancer-only ER, which was a really unique experience. And now I work at a stroke, chest pain, non-trauma center.
Now, what is a clinical coordinator?
Clinical coordinator is kind of like an assistant manager. So we are at the bedside. It's like a charge nurse plus. So we do a lot of patient satisfaction, employee satisfaction, throughput type of admin stuff, but we're also still at the bedside.
Nice. It's probably a pretty good role to kind of get started in management and leadership, but yet still maintain being at the bedside and being a nurse.
Yeah, and it's been just like a huge learning curve for me. It's been my first leadership role, and I've learned a lot, and I've been a clinical coordinator almost a year. And just like with everything else in the ER, things are always changing, and our role is always changing and growing. And it's been really fun to grow with it as well.
I bet. Now, you mentioned emerging professional. What does that term mean?
Yeah, so an emerging professional is a nurse who has less than 5 years experience. Specifically, we talk about it in the ER, but that can go for really any profession. And it's a really unique part of the population where we're growing and learning, and we're not, really experienced, so we're not set in our ways, and we're always trying to change and make things better.
Okay. So you mentioned you've been a nurse for just under 5 years. How did you get into nursing? Why nursing?
Yeah, so I went to college once before, and I did what a lot of 18, 19-year-olds do when they're away at college, and it's in a city like New Orleans. And so I damn near failed out the first time and got a degree in psychology. So I, graduated, walked across the stage, took my piece of paper, showed the world, and said, okay, I'm a college-educated person, what now? And with a degree in psychology, there wasn't a whole lot other than waiting tables.
Yeah, not a lot of jobs there.
Yeah. So I did that for about a year and continued the things that young adults do in New Orleans, in the wee hours of the morning after a restaurant closes. And at some point, I had a conversation with my mother, And the conversation was probably more eloquent than this, but she said basically shit or get off the pot with your life. And my mom has worked in healthcare my whole life. She's an X-ray tech by trade, but has done all forms of it, inpatient, outpatient, ER, OR, leadership. Now she works in research. And so she's been in healthcare, so she knows the roles of the healthcare team a lot better than I ever did. And she and I had a conversation where I thought maybe I want to be a physician because I like science and I like the human body. And she said to me, do you want to be the person at the end of the bed directing the plan of care, or do you want to be the person at the bedside with the patient?
Oh, and that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So I knew I liked people. You know, that was one of the things that I liked about waiting tables was getting to talk to people and help their experience with food. Well, I went to nursing school, and I thought, I've done college before. This isn't a big deal. I went to a small commuter school in New Orleans. It was a faith-based university, and my mom had graduated from there recently with her bachelor's in her later adult years. And I was like, whatever, nursing school, no big deal. College is fine. I could do this. And boy, nursing school changed my life. Yeah, definitely calmed down a little bit in nursing school. Definitely stopped the partying a little bit. And at one point, I just kind of was listening to a lecture at a student nurse conference about how nursing chooses you. And I just looked around the room at this conference and I realized that everyone was just like me. And that's how I knew that nursing chose me, is I was surrounded by people who were just like me and who had dreams and goals and cared just like me. And I knew I was in the right group of people.
It's kind of funny when I first went into the ER, I always tell people this, and I always feel like I found my tribe, like I found my people.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
It's kind of funny. You mentioned that too, that it's like, you realize that these people, and particularly in emergency nursing, I am an emergency nurse. No matter what I do in my career, I'll always be an emergency nurse because that's who is like me.
Yeah.
We're so much, even you and I are so much alike that we're you just get it.
Yeah. We just speak the same language. And as much as I enjoy my colleagues in other areas of nursing, and I think that they have a lot to teach us, there's nothing like another ER nurse. There's just nothing like it. Yeah.
I've never thought of it though. I've never thought of it as you said though, as nursing chooses you. Never thought of it that way. But maybe there's probably something to that.
My mom definitely steered me in the right direction, but nursing somehow found its way to lock its hands into me and, hang on tight and not let me go. And I've just soared with it ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was the your first moment after becoming a nurse where you were absolutely sure you made the right choice?
I don't know if it was one moment or if it was a series of things. So when I was in nursing school, I was really involved in the National Student Nurse Association. And I ran for vice president of the organization as a nursing student. And my tagline was vote Bice for Vice, because my last name is Bice. And it was man, this shit writes itself. This is perfect. And I was standing there in this row of people who were also elected, getting pinned. And it was this kind of little ceremony that we had during General Assembly. And standing there being okay, I'm making the right decision. All these people believe in me. All these people support me. I'm on the right path. And then there's patients that touch you, that you have bonds with, that say okay, I'm doing the right thing. This person, I made this person feel better, or I saved this person's life, or, just moments where you just get this glimmer of attaboy, and you just keeps you going.
It's those little things that'll help you get through a 12-hour shift.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, that's a big win right there. And it's something small.
Yeah.
You're like, but it feels like a big win. Tell me about a patient who changed the way you practice.
My brother changed the way I treat people as patients. So my brother and I grew up in typical American household. We had 2 parents, 2 children, black lab, total picture perfect American story. And my brother was an addict and kind of got into the things that goes with addiction. So problems with the law, problems with a stable, financial situation, and just all those things. And through that experience as his sister, I've been able to really, really understand and approach those patients from a very different perspective. Granted, I'm not a perfect person, and yes, we still get those, I'm allergic to everything but dilaudid patients that I roll my eyes at. But in general, those patients, I have a really special place in my heart. And I really try to practice with true compassion for those patients, as I hope my brother would have had with his encounters with the healthcare system. Ultimately, 2 years ago, my brother did end his life. And that experience also has helped me be much, much more compassionate with those types of patients. And my brother, I have a couple tattoos, but if I put regular clothes on or definitely in my scrubs, you can't see them. My brother was head to toe, full sleeves, neck tattoo. The only thing he didn't have was his face, thankfully.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
But,
the neck is pushing it. The neck is pushing it. So.
Oh, for sure. And it was a big P for my mom, whose name is Carrie. I'm really? Okay. Anyway, so, he looked rough and he had bad teeth and he was various stages of nourishment throughout his life. And so when I see guys with, women even with face tattoos or full sleeves, it doesn't scare me. It doesn't intimidate me. And so I had a patient. So then I have a great example of how this really helped me in the situation. I was at the bedside, and this was maybe a couple years ago, and I had a patient, young adult female, who came in for nausea vomiting. And in conversation with her, just kind of figuring out her home situation, how are we going to get discharged, get a ride, blah, blah, blah. She said, well, I just got out of jail, and so blah, 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 whatever she said. It doesn't really matter. I said, oh, you just got out of jail. How long were you in for? And just trying to innocently make conversation. And she said, whatever, 60 days or whatever. I said, so for 60 days, you've been eating commissary, which is the food that you get with real money in jail. And it's chips and very processed food. It's not healthy vegetables at all. And, yoo-hoo and ramen and that kind of stuff. I said, so for 60 days, you've been eating commissary. She's like, yeah, thankfully, my mom was sending me money, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, so she had real money, so she got good commissary. And so I said, yeah.
Only an ER nurse would know that.
Right. And honestly, it's because my brother, right? I know these things because my brother was in and out of jail for most of his adult life. So I said, okay, so you got out of jail, 2 days ago or whatever. I said, so you've been eating really good food. She's like, yeah, man. I said, something fried chicken and pizza and all these foods that you haven't had for the last 60 days. She's like, yeah. I said, girl, that's why you're throwing up, because your body's not used to it. She's like, man, you're right. And I was like, yeah. I said, so next time, hopefully there's not a next time. Don't go to jail. It's bad. But if there's a next time, ease yourself into it. Don't go hard your first day, because you're going to end up back here in the ER. She's like, man, you're so right. And I was like,
that's
nobody would know this unless they have a family member who has been in jail. And so those are the moments, since my brother has passed away now, that I think he's still there and he's still a part of me, and he's definitely a part of my nursing practice.
That's funny. It's kind of funny when you say something that kind of an inside baseball comment to something.
Yeah.
Because we as ER nurses, we hear all kinds of like, we know stuff that other people, like civilians, don't know. Like we know stuff that civilians don't know. We're like, oh yeah, we know about that. And they're like, oh really? Holy cow. Only an ER nurse would think about that and think about, oh man, here's what your problem is. And the doc may have not even put two and two together.
Well, because she probably didn't tell the doc, oh, I got out of jail a couple of days ago. It's a conversation that only the nurse has with the patient, in those moments of getting him on the monitor and changing him into a gown. And, you make those small talk moments as a nurse and you learn so much about your patient, just so much.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely spend a lot more time at the bedside talking to folks and getting to know people. And you're right. We're the connection. We're the connection of of medicine. So
we're the glue for sure.
Absolutely.
Keeps everything together.
Absolutely. Tell me about your first medical error.
Oh my God, this one's so good. And I'm almost embarrassed now that I've been a nurse a few years to even talk about this. But so my first job was at a cancer center in their ER. So the vast majority of our patients, 98%, came in, with cancer symptoms, tumor fever or neutropenic fever. And so they're doing sepsis workup and they're getting admitted or nausea, vomiting, or, dehydration and just all those just really specific symptoms. Well, as a new nurse learning all this, you don't learn the, basic ER stuff. You don't learn stroke protocols. You don't learn STEMI protocols. You don't learn trauma. So for us in that ER, chest pain was the first thing you think is, okay, do you have lung cancer? Do you have mediastinal tumor? Where is the tumor that's causing pain? And not, okay, what's your cardiac history? Because you have to be quite healthy to undergo cancer treatment, right? You can't have a bad heart and then take chemotherapy that's going to give you, one of the risk factors is ending up with heart failure because, you have to be somewhat healthy to get this treatment. And of course, there's special circumstances and, specialized care. But anyway, so this lady came in, and it's a very well-renowned facility. So there's a lot of non-English speaking patients. So I had a patient who was non-English speaking, and that comes with its own set of challenges, as we all know.
Absolutely.
Even with a translator, things just don't translate the same as they do in conversation. So turns out this lady's having cardiac chest pain. And I was a mid-shift nurse. I was 11 to 11. And much like across the country, all of our mid-shift are super tight because they go through the shit of it together. Sun up to sundown, 11 to 11, just hardcore, right?
The He-Man shift. Holy cow. You're going to be working. Yeah. It's going to be busy when you get there. It'll be busy when you leave.
Yeah, exactly. We were all super tight. And being the newest nurse on the unit, some people kind of had an extra eye out for me. Not very many, but some did. So my patient has non-cardiac, what seems like to me, non-cardiac chest pain. Doc assesses the patient. Someone does the EKG and shows the doc, but not me. Turns out she's having a legit STEMI. And this is my first one. I don't even know what to do. Now,
you're like, wait, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a big time overachiever. I want to do everything right. So I put a lot of pressure on myself and create the high stress environment of the ER even more stressful, which is so dumb. And so I'm I get one of my neighbor nurses and I was like, hey, so-and-so, I really need help. She's having legit chest pain and I don't know what to do. He's like, okay, go get the meds. I'm going to go to the bedside. I'm going to do whatever needs to be done there. I'm like, okay. So I go to the Pyxis machine and, I got the morphine, I get Zofran, I get, I don't even know if we had nitro. Oh, there was something else that, anyway, the nitro we have in the tablets in that little jar, right?
Yeah.
So the little pocket opens and it says take one on the front of the Pyxis, and there's only one bottle in the drawer. So I take the bottle, I close the pocket, I close the Pyxis, and I go to the room. And so I'm like, and granted, this is paper charting. Okay. This is like 4 years ago, and this is paper charting.
Yeah.
So I'm furiously writing down all these meds I'm going to give, and I'm looking at the physician order, and I have, I give the IV push stuff, no problem, done that before. And remember, there's a language barrier. So I take the bottle of nitro tablets, the sublingual 0.1.
Oh, no.
And I hand the bottle to the patient, and I make a gesture with my hands to off and back. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
My gosh.
And I'm not the only nurse at the bedside.
I'm
Thank
like,
God.
I'm wringing my hands here going, oh, Lordy.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. This is like such a pivotal point in my career. So, of course, the woman follows the nurse's instructions, takes the bottle to her lips, and tosses back these pills. And I didn't know. And you don't know what you don't know. And you don't know how harmful you can be with the knowledge that you don't have.
Oh, yeah. Talk about potentially harmful.
Right? So thankfully there's other nurses at the bedside that are like, no, like very much in slow-mo. And the patient, who doesn't speak English, has no idea what's going on. Thankfully, one of the nurses that was in the room with me did a travel stint in like Qatar or Dubai or something. So he knew some Arabic, and he was able to like speak to her in broken words to like spit everything out. And like someone slapped some gloves on and was like scooping these nitro tablets out of this woman's mouth. Of course, they dissolve the moment they hit your mouth because that's the freaking point of it. So her blood pressure goes from like 150 systolic to like 80.
Oh my God.
And it's just
like,
this comedy of errors
I don't feel
after.
Good. You get chest pain before.
Yeah, exactly. So, the patient becomes like panic and dizzy, and her blood pressure tanks, and we're flipping her into Endeavor. And I bring this, of course I have to go tell the doctor. And I just can't imagine what was going through this doctor's mind at the time. Like, this fucking little nurse just almost killed my patient. But at the end of the day, everything turned out fine. We had to transfer her, obviously, because we don't do STEMIs. And there was issues with the transfer. There were just like so many missteps along this person's care. And it just reminded me a couple things. One, always ask before you give a medication that you've never given before.
For sure.
Like, don't hand somebody a bottle of nitro.
Never.
Also, have people at the bedside with you who know better than you. Having those experienced nurses literally saved that lady's life. And own up to your mistake, right? And really understand the gravity of what happened. And I know I laugh about it now, but man, the repercussions from that were really, really big for my leadership team. And so big, and it sent me into such a deep depression. Like, I almost quit nursing.
Oh my gosh.
I at the time I worked for people who were more like punitive than learning from mistakes like that.
That's too bad.
Yeah. So, in fact, the conversation that we had with my manager after this, she just kind of looked at me like kind of flabbergasted, like she didn't really know how to deal with me as a new nurse, and just said to me, like, you're going to kill somebody someday. And
oh my gosh,
no one wants to hear that because we don't get into this to do that. What
a sobering thing to hear somebody say. I can't even imagine.
Right.
You mentioned that you got into a depression over that. I can imagine, because holy cow, nobody wants to hear you're going to kill somebody.
Yeah. And that was like, I almost left nursing. And thankfully, I'm super involved with ENA. And so my relationships there are kind of what saved me. But go back to the source of the issue is that I realized in the cancer hospital, I wasn't ever going to learn all the cool ER things that I really, really wanted to do. And so it was a turning point in me realizing, like, I got to work in a real ER. As much as I love my oncology patients and I love how special they were, I got to get somewhere where this is like second nature, I got to take care of patients with like more than just cancer.
Yeah. I would imagine that that's a pretty tough place to start as an ER nurse. For that to be your first ER gig, I would imagine that'd probably be pretty tough.
It actually, I enjoyed the patients so much more. So the reason I wanted to work there is because I had done some rotations there as a student in some summer programs. And the patients give a shit. And that is so rewarding. When you tell them, don't eat this, drink this much water, they're like, okay, how much do I drink? Is it 72 ounces or 76 ounces? Because they're going to make sure that they do exactly what you tell them to do because they want to fight for their lives. Versus a lot more of our chronically ill patients who are like, oh, I got to go to dialysis today. Well, I'm going to stop at McDonald's on the way because I'm hungry. And you're like, that's why you're getting dialysis. But,
Yeah.
The patients themselves were so much more rewarding. As a whole, they were more rewarding.
Yeah.
So, but yes, a lot of admissions, a lot of work, a lot of very, very, very ill people.
Yeah. I would imagine.
Yeah, but a really, really cool experience also.
I bet it was a really cool experience. I bet it's the kind of place where you probably got, sicker than average folks. Because they got a lot going on anyway. And then, to come in there.
Oh, yeah.
But I could see where you'd say that there's a lot of things in emergency nursing that you would never experience there. Like you're not going to experience your accidental drop-off trauma. You're not,
we did have a CPR. Yeah, we had like one CPR that like rolled up because it says emergency outside and if you don't speak English and that's the only word you know. So we coded this guy for like 75 minutes or something, ended up giving him TPA, got a pulse back.
Wow.
And had to, And I mean, but it was a cardiac CPR, it's just not, there's just a whole world of patient care that you just miss.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but it was good. It was a good like foundation to build off of for the rest of my career.
That's good. That's a crazy story.
Yeah. One tablet, not one bottle, one tablet.
Tell me about a patient that touched your heart.
This is another cancer patient. So gynecological cancers are horrific. If you have not taken care of very many women who suffer from gynecological cancers, wow, you're lucky because these are, I think they're the worst. They just tear women apart inside. And I had this lady come in, little petite. She's like in her 50s, 60s maybe. Comes in, she's got like the headscarf on, she's got no hair, saying she's having abdominal pain. Well, yeah, there's a tumor inside of you. But, we did the normal workup, morphine, Zofran. Probably she ended up getting Dilaudid because she probably was on like home morphine or something for her pain. CT scan. Well, the CT scan comes back and she's got a bowel perf. And again, not a super uncommon thing that the tumor erodes the bowel wall and then, you have this bowel perf.
How terrible.
I know. And it's just so sad. And she was by herself. And, patients who are by themselves, you tend to try to make more of a connection with them because there's no one else there to entertain them.
Yeah.
And I'm very much like to treat with humor. And so, cracking jokes with her, talking to her about her kids and her family. And she's like, oh, I got adult kids. They're doing this, that, and the other thing, blah, blah, blah. So the CAT scan comes back and she's got this bowel perf and they have to now decide care. Well, the hospital was a teaching hospital. So there's, residents and fellows and all these different levels of decision making. So in the ER, we had just attendings and fellows. So I went to the attending and was like, hey, have you spoken to, the GYN service line? What's the plan? She's like, oh, they're going to come down. Okay. So I'm kind of hanging outside the room, trying to figure out trying to catch somebody when they're walking by. And this resident comes out and, I said, hey, what's the plan of care? He said, well, she's in there thinking about it. I'm like, well, what are the options? He said, the options are either essentially not do anything or go to surgery. And she's not likely to survive the surgery. And I, being a new nurse at the time, I then asked this not that much newer resident, I very distinctly remember in my head asking him, well, is she okay? And he responds with, well, no, she's trying to decide how to die. And that's, wow. How powerful is that?
What a slap in the face wake up. You're like, oh.
Yes. And that's not what I was asking was, is she hysterical or is she accepting? Right.
Yeah.
But what he responded with was no, that she can't possibly be okay. And we were both right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I go back into the room and now there's just this heaviness in the room. Right. And I don't know if I created it myself because I was now nervous to talk to this person who was dying or if she was that way or we both were that way. But, I kind of talked to her and asked her, how, what do you think of everything? What decision are you kind of trying to make? And then I asked her, what about your family? And she said, well, now I'm going to call my family. And, one person was traveling, so it was going to take an X number of hours and blah, 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 blah. And she didn't make a big deal about it initially. So everyone went about their lives, and now it was a big deal. And now it was going to take them time to get there. And so I stayed with her as much as I could and talked to her. And I just had so much respect for her. And I remember just feeling so honored to be a part of the decision about how to die for her. Because that's not a decision that many of our patients get to make.
What a heavy conversation to have is for a fairly new nurse.
Yeah. And eventually one of her children's best friend or something ended up showing up. And so I was able to kind of take a step away later on in my care for her. And I just, you're not supposed to look in charts after patients leave, but she was definitely someone that I kind of checked in on as much as I could. And she did end up going to surgery and she did end up surviving a couple of days, but what a beautiful gift to be able to decide how to die. And ever since her, I've always felt that way. I've always felt that it was such a beautiful gift for our patients when they're able to decide for themselves how their life ends, because it becomes a much more beautiful process than the traumatic CPR, on scene, transfer to an ambulance, transfer to a hospital, scene that we're so used to seeing. And that's how I think death should be. It should be a beautiful part of living and part of life. I'll never forget that lady. I don't even know her name. I couldn't even violate HIPAA if I tried, because I just remember, the little being in that big stretcher and just her peace with the decision and her peace with accepting that her fight with cancer was over.
Wow.
And yeah, really, really beautiful experience for me.
What a heavy thing to deal with. I can't even imagine being in that situation where...
That's what's cool about those hospitals, those specialty hospitals, is you get to really experience those really unique populations that go through these really unique experiences.
Yeah.
And be a part of it for them.
Yeah, that's cool. And talk about being able to touch a life. Holy cow.
Yeah. She touched mine, I think, more than I touched hers, and when she wheeled off to surgery, it was just me and the family friend that was there with her, and, just like high-fiving her and making her smile. And I just remember she rolled out to surgery, with a smile on her face, and how how much it would take in a person to be at that much peace with death is just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful thing, yeah.
That's crazy. Holy cow.
Mm-hmm. These are stories that make me smile.
Yeah, no, that's a good story.
They've shaped who I am as a nurse, and they've shaped who I am as a person.
Absolutely. It's funny how they do that.
Right?
Speaking
I think nursing has given to me more than I've given to it.
I think a lot of people say the same thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that shaped you, what's the best advice your mom ever gave you that you took into nursing?
Man, just do it. Just go to nursing school. But also, yeah. So my mom just keeps me really grounded, and I very much am a flair for the dramatic, and she reminds me not to be sometimes, which is really, really necessary. So she just keeps me down to earth, and she keeps me from fighting fights that are not worth it.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes that's hard to remember, is like what fight's worth fighting and what fight's not worth fighting.
Yeah. But if my mom had not ever told me to go to nursing school, then we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation.
It's a good point. It's a good point. If it wasn't nursing, what do you think? What else do you think you would have done?
God, I wanted to be like everything growing up. For a while, I wanted to be Katie Holmes because I was like in love with Dawson's Creek and her in general. And then I wanted to be an actress for a while. And then I wanted to be a chemical engineer, but I partied too much in college, so I couldn't do that. I wanted to be a physician for a while, but again, I partied too much in college, so I didn't do that. So honestly, like at this point in my life, if I couldn't be a nurse anymore, I would love nothing more than to be a stay-at-home mom, and to be there to like raise my children and manage a household. I see friends who do it all the time and are freaking rock stars at it. And it just seems like something I would find a lot of joy in. Because I honestly, I don't know what else I would do. To me, sitting in an office sounds really boring. I don't have any marketable skills outside of nursing.
I bet you'd be surprised what crosses over.
Yeah, I mean, I could wait tables, but that sounds horrible and totally underwhelming after being a nurse. Yeah. But yeah, I think being a stay-at-home mom would be incredible.
Yeah. You'd be constantly triaging your child's injuries. Oh, you're fine. Go ahead. Just walk it off.
Oh, yeah, we'd never go to the doctor.
Walk it off. I know it's broken, but it'll be fine. It'll heal. It'll heal on its own. You're young.
Poor Carl. He's going to be such a great dad someday, and he's gonna think that things are so awful, and I'm gonna be like, no, it's fine. It's fine.
You're like, it's okay. It's just a little bit of blood. It's no big deal.
Yeah, no big deal.
That's funny.
Where's the Cobans? I'm sure I have some from the hospital here somewhere.
That's funny.
I do not endorse stealing from hospitals.
No, of course not. Of course not. I'm sure we don't have a closet full of medical supplies from someplace. Yes. Not really sure where you picked them up.
Sure. Somewhere along the way. It was in my pocket when I left.
That's right. So as a fairly new ER nurse, being less than 5 years, have you had good mentors in your nursing career?
Yeah. So it started back when I was in nursing school. I had 2 faculty advisors for the Student Nurse Association that were huge advocates of me chasing my crazy dreams, and some of my biggest cheerleaders. And they really helped me grow in my leadership, in my interpersonal skills, in just grow as a nurse. So then, I went into nursing, and I ended up in this beautiful hospital in the emergency department. And the people that I worked for were not great with new nurses and really struggled with me and with how to develop me as a nurse and as a person. And ultimately, I ended up leaving that facility because of their inability to mentor me, their inability to help me grow. And I met this great person through ENA who has been just an incredible mentor to me over the last 4 years and has helped me leaps and bounds grow as a nurse and as a person. And through ENA have just grown tremendously. And there's been people along the way who give you little bits of advice and kind of like nudge you in the right direction. You're definitely one of them. But it's really been that one person who has just been there for me in through thick and thin, and even when she was struggling with her own stuff, has just really been able to help me be a better person and a better nurse.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and she's the reason why I drive 45 miles to work 3 times a week, one way.
I got to tell you, working for the right team and working for the right group, you'll commute. You'll go that extra mile. You'll go that extra, miles just to stay on a good team and to have a good leader and to have somebody who's going to take some ownership and be with you and help you grow as a nurse and as a person. Holy cow. How lucky are you to have found that? That's super awesome.
Yeah. And I, just like we all have, I've definitely glimpsed at other job openings, mapped it out. It's closer to home or whatever. But I've told her this too. I will never grow there like I will here. And to me, my professional growth is way more important than a dollar sign or than the 20 minutes extra I spend on the road each way, or, my professional growth and my career trajectory is really important to me.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. She's a really cool chick.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear, and awesome that you have that you found that, because a lot of people don't find that. They don't find their fit and find their place, and and they never find that perfect fit or that person who's going to help them grow. So
yeah, I really feel like the luckiest girl in the world sometimes.
That's cool.
Mhm.
What advice would you give a brand new emergency nurse?
Ask so many questions. Just keep asking, and find people that you can ask questions to, because as much as I think nursing has changed in the past 5 years that I've been here, I think that there's still people out there that don't like to teach and that don't like new nurses. And I would say just don't worry about them. Ask questions. Ask the doctor, ask the secretary or the unit clerk, ask everybody, because everybody knows something that you don't, and you know something that they don't. And just accept the growing pains of being a new nurse. while you're learning all of this stuff, because it sucks. Oh, it sucks so bad. It feels so horrible being dumb. And you are, because you're new, and every time, you start something different, you're going to be dumb. Even if you have pre-hospital experience, it's just like it's a totally different way of thinking about people and about patients. Just really ask so many questions.
I think that's the key to success is just, finding somebody who knows just a little bit more than you do. And learning from them.
Yeah. Because we're all, an expert in something and nothing, right? And so we all have something to learn from each other.
Absolutely. I 100% believe that.
Yeah.
So you ready for the hard question?
Is this 3 things?
It is. What are 3 things an emergency nurse should remember? And what are 3 things an emergency nurse should forget?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to do it in any kind of order, but
it's fine.
I want to tell people to forget the haters, because I guess this is a 2-part. So remember to chase your dreams, but forget the haters along the way.
Okay.
If I didn't chase my dreams, there's no way I would have accomplished half the things that I have in the short time that I've been a nurse. I've completed my master's degree, and I have 2 certifications, and I'm on it. Yeah, I know. And I have the same credentials as one of my favorite people in the world, Kevin McFarland, which is so crazy, because you've been a nurse forever, and I've been a nurse for a second.
Thanks for making me feel old, and I'll pay you later.
It was yeah. But if there weren't people encouraging me to chase my dreams, then I would never have accomplished these things. And there's been a lot of haters along the way who said, you can't do this. I wish you wouldn't do this. I can't believe she is doing this. And I'm a very sensitive person. I can for sure put up the hard ER nurse front, but I'm very sensitive, and that hurts a lot. That hurts my sense of self a lot when people hate and hate in very public ways. But Facebook public, where it's I'm not talking about you, but everyone knows I'm talking about you.
A little bit of vague booking.
Oh yeah, totally. Because that's how women do it. It's the estrogen. We can't help ourselves. So, chase those dreams, because no one's gonna make your life for you, and no one's gonna be a nurse for you, and no one's gonna build your career for you. You have to do it yourself. And that was the big one that I was thinking about. But 2 more things to remember is, I'm going to repeat myself, but it's to ask questions. Why are we giving this drug? Why am I doing this care? And it's okay to ask the physicians questions. They're human too. And it's okay to question things too. Not just ask questions, but to question things. I noticed we had a med error in our department, and it was a sounds like kind of drug thing. And it's okay to say to the physician, hey, why are we ordering this drug that completely seems inappropriate for this patient? And then sometimes you'll get a physician or, nurse practitioner or PA, whoever says, well, duh, and sometimes you'll get an education response. But it's okay to always ask questions. And then the third thing to remember is to remember why you're there. You're there for the patient. It's about the patient. We have some really shitty days, and sometimes it's the patients that make our days shitty. Sometimes it's our coworkers, because let's be honest, we're all human. But at the end of the day, it's about the patient. And the patient is going through whatever they're going through that brought them to the ER, whether it be dramatic or traumatic. And And that's why we're all here, is we're here for the patient. And then forget a lot of what you learned in nursing school, because it doesn't apply to ER nursing. I used to joke when I first started that, like, you don't learn oncology nursing in nursing school, and you don't learn ER nursing in nursing school. So I was in an oncology ER, and I had like no idea what I was doing, because that's not what I learned.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
ER nursing is completely different.
Yeah, I mean, sure, in your testing you have prioritization questions, but it's like, when they all need to get done, what's really the priority?
Yeah.
Because it's all important, and it's all stat. And I joke sometimes that everything is stat in the ER, but if I tell you it's super stat, that means it's really a priority.
Yeah, you're like, get this done now.
Yeah. That means like this is like an actual emergency. And then one more thing to forget your life at the door. We all have our different shapes and sizes and colors of baggage that we bring to the table. And I think that is part of the beautiful thing that makes us all beautiful nurses and wonderful nurses. But the hard stuff, the bills, this, soccer camp, and who's going to pick up Susie from daycare and blah, 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 like that's got to get left at the door, because our patients need us to be present. And if you can't be present, you can't be a good nurse. I've always told people, if you're not feeling good, don't come to work. We'll run short. It'll be okay. The patients will get seen, because I'd rather you be home recovering so that your next shift you can be present. Because when you're not present, you're just setting yourself up for failure, and it's going to make you more frustrated, and it's going to make you feel worse. And if you work through an illness, you're just going to feel more and more sick. And I think it's okay for us to take time for ourselves and and even though it makes, we all have that innate sense of, well, I don't want to make my team run short. It's better to run short than to run short with half a man,
Yeah. How do you do that though? Because sometimes that's really hard to do. I mean, sometimes, and it varies. I mean, sometimes, we've all gone to work with the sniffles. We've all gone to work
Sure.
feeling 100%. But when your head's just not there, and your head's not in the right place, how do you check that baggage at the door? Because it seems to me that's probably more dangerous. I mean, you go into work completely distracted and thinking about something else.
You have to do a little self-talk, right? And I'm very much an advocate of like guided imagery and positive self-talk, and the power of positive thinking. And you really just need to take a moment to yourself and say, okay, today I'm going to focus. I know that mom's at home sick, or my child is home from school sick, or whatever it might be, but I need to focus on my patients, and my patients need me to be present. And honestly, like, your license depends on it, right? Because if you're distracted, you're more likely to make an error. They do, not in the ER, but I've heard in other units, they do the, like, no talking and no phone policy, like in the med room, because the data shows that if you're distracted, you're more likely to make an error. The same goes for just mental distractions as well. If you're thinking about, anything, then you're not thinking about your patient.
Yeah. It's hard. It's sometimes hard to do that, though. It's sometimes hard to
very much so
turn it all off and be like, okay. And even going patient to patient. I mean, you go into one room and you're, doing a code, and you're coding somebody and then dealing with the family and everything else, and you need to go back into the next room where little Johnny has a splinter and act like everything's cool and act like everything's great.
Right.
And everyone's having a great day in the ER.
Yeah.
And it's hard
what a
sometimes.
Mind fuck.
Right?
What we do is such a mental mind fuck that we shouldn't make it harder on ourselves, right?
It really is. It really is. Because, we do. I mean, how many times have you had a death in the department? Whether it's some not all deaths are bad. Certainly some are different than others. But you have a death in the department, and then you got to go see little Susie and act like everything's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I had a case not too long ago where I was notifying the family with the physician that their father had passed. This family, the husband and the father had passed, and the family, they knew. I mean, they were doing CPR in the house, and they knew that those were all bad things. But here I am having this conversation with the family and the doctor, and and talking about what were his wishes, what would he want to do, and he wasn't. It was fairly sudden, and they hadn't really talked about it and hadn't thought about it. We're having this really heavy conversation. I literally walk from there, and they say, "Hey, Kevin, can you go talk to this person who wants to complain about the wait time in the ER?"
Right.
And you're like, sure. As I go and I talk to this person who wants to complain about the wait time, and it's this little girl who's bouncing around. She's about 13 years old, cute as a button, and she was there because she had a splinter. And you're like,
yeah.
And the family's like, I can't. This is ridiculous. Can't believe how long this takes. I'm like going, yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. It's pretty ridiculous that you're here for a splinter. But in all, but you got to go and have that conversation without, putting the weight of them of, look, fucker, these people in this room right here, they just had somebody die, and you're complaining because you had to wait a long time. Where's your? You want to say this to patients, but of course you can't. Because boy, wouldn't it be nice if you could just be like, hey, let me tell you what I've been doing. Come watch CPR.
Yeah. Yeah, I've tried that a couple times in my growth as a supervisor role. I've tried to go out to complaining people and been like, I'm so sorry that you're waiting. Unfortunately, patients who are sicker have, they get to cut the line. And I try to say that like as a joking way, like, yeah, they get to cut the line. Like, we all know there isn't a line, let's be real.
Right.
They get to cut the line. I said, this person didn't have any vital signs and your husband does. And like, they don't get it.
They're like, what?
And it's really, yeah, they don't get it. They don't get it. So I stopped saying that because it just pisses me off even more.
Yeah. You're like, you don't understand. Let me just.
Yeah.
We're doing the best we can. We're going to try to get you back just as soon as we can. Thanks for asking for me. Appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. Can I get you a warm blanket?
That's
he has a fever? JK. Just kidding. No blanket for you.
No blanket. Sorry. No, you really want one, but no.
Yeah. No. Just nope. Sorry. And we have at my hospital, there's a pretty significant elderly population. So we'll have, 80 and 90-year-olds wait in the lobby for 3+ hours. And as much as we try to get them back, it's just not possible sometimes. And there just aren't any rooms sometimes. And sometimes the 25-year-old really is sicker than the 85-year-old. And so they get to, quote unquote, cut the line. And I feel so bad because, man, I don't know if I could sit out there for 3 hours, and I'm in my 30s. Like, I don't know how these
hard.
Like,
I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it. You're like, guys, you must really be sick or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Or have nothing else to do today.
Maybe that's the case.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the quintessential, well, my doctor called. I know. I appreciate the heads up. That was very nice of them.
You're like, your doctor called. And we told your doctor to tell you that it was going to be a long time. Yeah. Apparently, he didn't pass that message along.
No, they never do. They're always on their way.
Yeah, that's always the case. So...
Thanks for listening to the Art of Emergency Nursing podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Facebook.
And there's going to be people who wish they had that drive and who wish that they had that fearlessness, and they're going to hate and screw them, because I hear the dogs. Hi, buddies.
They do this to me all the time. Hold on 1 second, okay?
Yeah, no problem.
I'm going to have to put you on hold for a second. Take a potty break or anything if you need it. It's good. I got to run downstairs real quick. I'll be right back.
Yes, no problem. So my name is, you want first name and last name?
However you want to do it. You can do first name, you can do last name. You can do just the first. Some people have done just the first name. Some people have done first name, last name. Some people say where they work. Some people don't. It's completely up to you. However you want to display yourself.
Okay. Like not a super nerd, like a really cool, fun person you want to hang out with.
I like super nerd myself, but that's okay.